Alright, in today's lesson, I'm going to start with React Native Selfie Queen. JS5 Challenge 8. Let's see. So let's review. What was JS5 Challenge 8? That was... Let's see. JS5 Challenge 8. It doesn't seem to be there. So let's look at what JS5 Challenge 8 was. That was Selfie Queen for recording stuff. Name chat and Selfie Queen. So I was in JS5 Challenge 8 folder. Okay. So let's go to master. Make sure it has all of the latest changes. So git branch, git checkout, git merge, P1, that's already there. P2 is already there. P3, there's a merge conflict. Okay. I don't think we use P3. So let's move on. So I think I made a mistake of naming all the branches. I think it was JS6-3, so P3 is no longer used. So I might want to remove that. Okay. Git merge P4, P5, P6, P7. Okay, there's a merge conflict. So when you have merge conflict, let's see. This is what's in your current master, and this is what's in that branch. So we kind of want all of them. So we want all of this in here because we need them in development. Okay, so now I believe I've duplicate object T. Okay, there's no fetch twice. That's good. Now we have resolved the merge conflict. You add package.json. Git commit again. Resolves merge conflict for JS5 problem 7. Let's merge problem 8. Okay. Let's see how many problems there were. There's also 9. So we probably want to merge that into P9. Okay, so now our master branch is all up to date. We are going to continue with our challenge. This is a React Native app. JS5 Challenge 8. So this is on problem 5. So git check out problem 5. Okay. So since it's problem 8, let's see what we need to do here. Let's first run JS5 Challenge 8 or JS5. Let's see what's in there. Nothing yet. So I need to merge master. Now I have all the files. Okay. So now I have a challenge 8 folder. I go into challenge 8 and I can run server.js. So let's review what we did in this app. This app lets me send a request to API images and then it displays all of the pictures. So, and it saves it into the public folder. Okay. So we look at public folder, there's only index.html, and we don't want to use that. Now we want to build a mobile app. To build a mobile app, the easiest way is to go to Expo, search for Expo, and we're going to build a mobile app with your phone. So expo.io/learn, this is a good resource for you to build your mobile application. And then fall in love, try snack. So you click on try snack. This is it. Now, all of this, let's review the code. Import star as React from React. Import is another way of doing require. So this is almost the same as require React. Const React equals require React. So React, as you remember, it's an engine. And then all the components that you want to display on the page comes from React Native. So here there's a text component, a view component, and a style sheet variable. Yeah, so it's importing. It's helping you separate into files already, so it's giving you a good start. Yeah, and so I'm going to start by saying I am starting challenge 5 of JS6. Okay, cool. So this is what it takes. To build a mobile app, you're almost halfway done. All you have to do is download the Expo client and scan the QR code, which I will now do. So here's my phone. I'm gonna open up the camera. So you just type on the camera here. And then you just scan the QR code on the screen. And then you should see this open an Expo thing. So you open it, and you have your mobile app. Ta-da. And you see here, it says I'm starting challenge. So now you have a very simple mobile app. But what we're going to do is we're going to use the camera component and show the camera. Right? So let's do that. So let's search for camera component expo. And to get the camera, we import from the camera library. And if you guys want to follow along, just scan the QR code with your phone and you should be able to follow along. So let's import the camera. And then we need a state and a type to change the camera type. But first, let's create a state for use setting permissions. So when the app loads, I'm going to set a permission, react.useState. And then I need to ask the person, hey, can we use the camera? So remember, we use react.useEffect because this is asynchronous. It takes time for this to run. So when it takes time to run and you change the state, it will rerun. You don't want to keep doing this in the loop. That's why we use useEffect here. So the first thing we're going to do when the app loads is to ask someone, hey, can we get the permission to use your camera? And then now on my phone, it asks me, can you grant access to use the camera? So I'm going to hit allow. So now permission is granted. So here to display the permission status, we do permission of state. Camera has permission. Cool. So now, after we get the permission, we set status to equal to granted. So it should either be true or false. So if this is true, we show granted. Otherwise, we show rejected. Cool. And now the app should say permission of camera is granted. So now, if the permission of the camera is granted, we can now display the camera. So instead of all this, we want to display a camera. Let's see how they do it. When we show the camera, we need the type. Type is whether it's the front or the back. So let's always make it the back. So, or let's always make it the front camera. Okay, cool. So now just like that, we have our camera. And it shows the front of the camera. So I think it'll be nice to put a few buttons here to say toggle front or back buttons. So let's do that. So to do that, before we do that, the style, let's create a variable called camera style. Width, I want it to be 200 pixels. Height, 200 pixels. I don't like this filling up the whole screen, so I'm just going to write camera style here. Display flex. This one. I don't know how to make this smaller, so not sure how this works. Let's see. Flex 0.5 made it half of the screen. So, okay. So we don't need width and the height. We can make this smaller. Alright. So now I want a button to toggle front and back. Let's see. Button. So now we need the button component. Let's Google. Let's see if they have a button component for me to use. Hey, there is a button. Alright. So button, unlike HTML, or unlike the web uses onClick, but button uses onPress. So let's put this in. Okay. Button comes from React Native. And then let's create a variable or take picture. So now we have a button called take picture. I don't know if you can see There's a button up here that says take picture. So when I click on it, right now nothing happens. But here we want to send a request to the server. So let's send a simple request like fetch to sony.com/API/images. Let's go over here, but let's make sure our server is running first. Okay. Let's create a simple get, and we just do console.log request is received. Oops. My port is 3013. Okay. So it says hello, and if you look at the server, every time a request is sent, it says request is received, right? We need to do that on the server now, on the mobile app now. So I need to send a request to here. And fetch is not defined, so let's import fetch. Alright, add node fetch. They asked you if you wanted to get a library, so I went ahead and I added a library here. Node fetch. Okay, so go back to my file. Unable to resolve node fetch. There is no node fetch. So let me Google expo fetch to see what happens. Is there a fetch? There's background fetch. That's not what I want, so let's Google this. Nobody seems to be having this issue. How do I send a request? Send a request. We want to send an HTTP request. This guy doesn't know it. Nobody knows it. Oh, right here. Seems like we can just use fetch. Seems like fetch works out of the box, so I don't need to require fetch. Is that possible? Okay. So I'm gonna open up my phone and tap take picture a couple of times. Wow. So every time I click on this, I receive a request. That's good. So my phone is sending requests to the server. Now, instead of sending any picture, I want to send a picture, a base 64. So I need to look for camera, expo, camera, base 64. Okay. Options, base 64. Wow, this is take picture async. This is what I want. I want to take picture async. How do I use it? Is there examples on how to use these? Okay. Takes a picture and saves it to app cache directory. Oh. So this is a function. I need to run the function. Oh. I need to use methods that camera exposes, one has to create a component ref. So we've never covered ref before, but ref gets the element. So this dot camera gets the element. So let's try that. Ref. So when I have this camera component, I set this dot camera equals ref. This means whatever is in this component is. So that component camera property, or I can call it, I think camera is the best, but let's say cam. You can name it whatever you want. So whenever I take a picture, I can do this dot cam dot take picture. Okay. So take picture. Let photo equals this dot camera dot take picture async. Okay. So if this dot cam exists, then since I'm using await, I need to put async here. And then const photo. And now I send the photo as a post request to the server. So fetch method post headers content type application JSON, and then the body is json.stringify. Let's look at our server code. In our server code, the body is called image data. So image data is going to be photo. So I don't know if this will work, but there's only one way to find out. Take camera async takes an argument, which is an object. And quality. Quality, we want the highest quality, so maybe 1 or maybe 0.5. Base 64, we want that. So base 64, true. We want base 64. Quality is 0.5. We want to make it small quality. Okay. Okay, so URL with height extf base 64. Base 64 and is a string. Okay. Prepend that. Okay, so I think this is saying the string doesn't have this. When we get the object, it has the base 64 key. So photo.base64. Alright, so let's see if this works. I'm going to go to my server. There's nothing in index. Now I'm going to send the request. Wow. And a picture showed up. So let's look at this picture. Yes, my picture showed up. This is great. So now I can take as many pictures as I want on my phone and it will show up on my website. So the React part is done for this exercise. I can click on it, but I think instead of using the front camera, I want to use the back camera. Okay, so now this is done, and let's build a simple website to show all of the images. So let's go here, and then okay, so what server is going to do is when I go to all of the images route, it's going to do fs.readdir. So I'm going to get all of the files names and then files.filter out all the names where it has a .png at the back, and then const string equals. So I'm gonna return a bunch of image tags. So image, or actually it's img, source is slash name, and then I need to give it some style. So str plus add a style tag, and style tag has image width of 200 pixels, height of 200 pixels, and then after that we do res.send the string. Okay, so let's restart the server, and then I should be able to go to cerny.com/images. Whoops, it must be a bug. I'm using a const, I should use a let. Okay, let's run the server again. So it shows all the pictures. I'm gonna take a bunch of pictures. I'm gonna take a picture of my coffee. I'm gonna take a picture of my water bottle. I'm gonna take a picture of my laptop. I'm going to take a picture of my favorite sandwich place. Okay. Now with my phone taking a bunch of pictures. Ta-da! Yeah, so this is it. We have built a website where you can take pictures with your phone and it shows up on your website. And so we are done. And to save this, I'll just copy everything and get ready to save. Okay, so I made a change to server.js. I probably want to go to JS6 and then vim5.js. This is challenge 5. That's right. Yep, this is all it took to create a picture taking mobile app. So I'm going to add 5.js, solves problem or challenge 5 of JS6. JS6 problem 5. Okay. Alright, so we finished the React Native exercise. That one was pretty simple. Now, starting from your Pokemon Lessons project, which was this one, add an ability for logged in Pokemon to rate each lesson. Alright, I need to be able to rate each lessons. This would be really interesting. So git checkout p master, git merge p4. P4 was this webpack classes. This one got approved, so I can merge it in. So I'm gonna merge p4. Already up to date. So I'm going to go to problem 6 branch, git merge what is a master to be in sync, and now we are in sync. I'm going to go to JS6, start the server. I also need to start the webpack, so webpack watch. I have npx webpack watch. Cool. Now webpack is getting watched. Let's make sure that our website is running. cerny.com/3/Pokemon. Cool. So now it's cerny.com/3/Pokemon. I'm gonna log in as Poliworld. Log in. So now when I enroll in a lesson, I'm supposed to be able to rate these lessons, right? So to rate these lessons, actually, oops. Let's go to our Kanban board and let's think about what we need to do to make this work. So first add stars component to lessons, to enrolled lessons. And then we need to come up with data structure to store Pokemon lesson star value. And then we need to do the GraphQL mutations to set stars. And then after that, after we get all of the lessons for each user, so GraphQL user query should return star values for each lesson. So during interviews, for problems like this, it's important to write down the steps you're going to do so the interviewer knows. The interviewer knows what you're going to do. And then front end lessons page should display which stars for users to show. Should display the stars for each lesson. Cool. So for this, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. Okay. Let's see. What is the easiest one? This one is the easiest one. So let's do this. Add stars component to enrolled lessons. How do we do that? Pokemon enrollment. So here's the dashboard. And in the enrolled classes, we have, here's the enrolled classes. And then under each lesson, we should give it a star. Like that. A star is undefined, so we just need to require star or stars. Is that all I have to do? Let's check it out. Nice. So it seems like that's all I have to do. For arrays, I can give it a star. Oh. So every time I give it a star, I unenrolled myself. That's not what I want to do, so I have to be careful about that. So I can't put the star here. So it needs to be below it. And since it's below it, I need a div. Polywhirl plugin. 2 stars. 5 stars. So now I can rate them. Yeah, so this part is done now. That was simple. Done and tested. Next, I need to come up with a data structure to store Pokemon lessons. Let's come up with a data structure. So on the server side, here's the server. How do we store the stars? So user has an array of saved lessons. Okay, so when the request gets sent to the user, we have the Pokemon lessons. And lessons is an object. Huh. Pokemon lessons is an object. And then the value is true. We set the value to the rating. That would be cool. We set the value to... Yeah, okay. So I think when we designed this, everything is already set up. So if you look at Pokemon lessons, you already have like the object, which is the Pokemon name, and you have the lessons like JS0. And then right now the value is true, but we just store the whatever the user specified the value to be, which is 3 or 4 or 5. So that's all we need to do. So that seems pretty simple. Let's write the mutation then. Seems like we're done with this one, but we don't know for sure yet. Let's add the mutation to see how we're doing. So let's go to GraphQL. Okay, so we have enroll and unenroll. So we need a mutation called rate lesson. So when you add a new GraphQL mutation, the first thing you do is you need to do this. Add a type def. So set star. We need a title and a value. That's a number. Okay. Set star a args rec So the Pokemon comes from request.session. This is the cookie. The cookie tells us who is the currently logged in Pokemon. And if the Pokemon isn't logged in, we return an empty array. Okay. And then Pokemon lessons or an empty object. And then the lessons at the title is args.value. Set the value, and then set the Pokemon, and then send it back. That seems pretty easy enough. I think this is what we have to do. And then now when you get the Pokemon information, we need value. When you get the user, let us change the type. So the user object is going to be lesson, and lesson type we want to add in a value or a rating. It's going to be an int, which is a number. So then this should be an int. Okay, cool. So now when we get the user, we send back the rating, which is lessons at index title or 0. Cool, so I enroll and then I have the ratings. Let's see if our GraphQL queries work. I'm going to first log in. Let me log in as Polyworld. Now that I'm logged in and I enrolled in a few classes, if I send a get user request, my lessons also now have a rating. Let me refresh. Rating. Cool, so rating is going to be 111. Wow, why is the rating 1? It's interesting. Oh, the rating is 1 because I'm setting this to 0 during enroll, to true. I should set this to 0. So let's try this again. I'm going to enroll myself. Enroll into the first 3 lessons. Now when I send a request, it should give me 0, 0, 0. I'm going to add a mutation where I rate the class. So the mutation is going to be called set star. I want to set star to which lesson? Let's say Foundations of JavaScript. Value is 5. Okay, cool. So I set star. Now when I call get user again, the rating is 5. So my GraphQL is done. This is what I need to do in the backend. So this seems like it's done. And then this one, I think I just finished also. And then now we need to do front end to send mutation request to set lesson rating. So I need to do that. Let's do that. Let's do this part. Actually, I think I don't want to do this. I think this is easier. Display the stars for each lesson. I don't want to use NodeMon because my backend is done. I'm gonna use Node. So let's try this one more time. I'm gonna log in as Polyworld. Sign up for 2 classes. And then I'm going to set a star for the first class. Okay. And then for the second class, I'm going to give it a rating of 3. So, or the arrays, I'm going to give it a rating of 3. Whoops. Arrays, value of 3. So now when I send the request to get my lesson, it should be 503. Okay. So now on the server, on the front end, enrollment, when I get the Pokemon information, instead of title, I want the lesson title and I also want the rating. Okay. And then now when I go to dashboard, I want to display the lessons, which is under enrolled, I believe. Enrolled. Okay. And then the enrolled components, when I display them, I display the lesson, which is enrolled lessons. Okay. So here's the index. What I'm going to do is just to enroll at the index. So the number of star. Let's look at our stars component. Star taking value, and then we can set an initial value. So value would be equal to okay, so I don't feel good about this part, enrolled titles. I think this is better if enrolled lessons was just enrolled like that. Let's see where enrolled title is used. It's not. So when enrolled lessons dot includes, it should be lesson dot title. So const enrolled titles. So what I'm doing now is, right now enrolled titles is an array of strings. I don't want it to be an array of strings because I lose track of which one has the value. So I need to do a little bit of refactoring. So we need to do refactor dashboard to use array of lessons instead of array of strings. So we need to do this first. And then I can't do that unless this is done. So enrolled titles is going to be enrolled lessons.map, and then I display each title. And this would be enrolled. So then this would be enrolled titles. Okay. This is good. This is good. So now lesson, it will be lesson.title. Okay. I hope this is all the change that needs to be done for this component. Let's make sure everything still works with my polyworld. And of course, something broke. Objects are not valid as a React child. So created by dashboard. So there's something wrong with our dashboard component. So I think the lesson is an object now, so we need to do lesson.title. Like that. Cool. Each child on the list should have a key prop. So the key should be on the div side. Okay. Let's make sure enroll and unenroll still works. So I'm gonna enroll into objects, and that's not good. Objects doesn't work anymore. So when I unenroll, when I click on enroll, I set components to lesson.title. I should set an object with a inside is lesson.title. Let's try this one more time. I'm gonna enroll into front-end engineering. Everything worked out. I'm going to unenroll. This looks good. Seems like our refactoring is done. So let's finish that. And then now let's display. So now I'm going to display the stars for each lesson. So I want to display the number of stars. To do that, since our enrolled lesson is an object, whenever we are displaying star, we just set a value. Value equals lesson.rating. Oh no. Let's see what happened in the network request. When we send a GraphQL request, what comes back in the response? Lessons. Title. There's no ratings. Okay, so when we send the request to Pokemon enrollment, when we send the request, we're not sending the rating. We want the user rating, not the main lesson rating. The main lesson does not have a rating. Nice. See that? The stars works. This works. This one is done. Now we need to send mutation to set stars. Front end to send mutation request to set lesson rating. This one is done. This one is done. We need to do that now. The last part. So when I select on a star component, so this is the parent component here, dashboard. There is no way for dashboard to know when someone clicked on the star. So we need to pass in a prop like on select equals, so const select rating equals a function, and it takes in the rating value. Right, so we need to know when someone clicked on the stars, so we need to pass in a function. And our stars right now does not support it. So on click, where it's on click, it needs to also call the props. So if props.onSelect, then props.onSelect, and I'll pass in the value. So now I had to make some adjustment to stars. So on select, we pass in select rating. Cool. So for now, we just console.log rating. Let's see if it works. So 5, yes. 3, that's good. So now what we want to do is send GraphQL mutation. Okay, so mutation is called set star with the lesson and the value, with the title and the value. So we're sending in the title, and then we just send in the value, which is going to be rating. Okay, so after we send the rating, then new lessons dot for each. So if the lesson title is equal to for each state. So if the state lesson.title equals the lesson.title that I clicked on, then that lesson.rating equals the new rating. And then we set the new state. Cool. Actually, we don't need to set the new state. It's already set. We don't have to do anything actually. Just send the request. Cool. Let's refresh the page. Click on network. So when I hover over 5, I'm going to give it a 5. I'm going to give arrays a 1. I didn't like that lesson. Front-end engineering was really fun. So every time I clicked, it sent a GraphQL. But every request was wrong. Because I forgot to put in the set star mutation. So this should be set star. Let's try it again. I'm going to give this variables. It was really great. Arrays I didn't like. Front-end engineering was awesome. So 500 for all. Let's look at this review. 5515. So if I refresh the page, 5515. And we're done rating our lessons. This is done. Okay. Use GraphQL, store the ratings into an object. Already did that, so it's all done. Okay. To add everything and commit in one line, you do this. -am solves challenge 6 of JS6. Is it challenge 6? Yep. It is challenge 6. Let's go to problem 7 now. Okay. So problem 7 wants me to React Apollo. So what is React Apollo, right? Let me show you. First, we need to merge everything we have in branch 6 into branch 7, so we can continue from where we were just now. So right here, we're sending the GraphQL queries ourselves. We don't want to do that. What we can do is if we use Apollo client, it does this for us, so it makes our code a little bit cleaner. Like right here in the main, we don't really need to set the loading state ourselves and then set the Pokemon and get the Pokemon. Apollo does it for us. So let's try to add Apollo in. So let's start Webpack. Okay, let's add React Apollo into our project. Not found, the URL is bad. So we search for it. React Apollo. React Client 3.0 is in beta. We don't want to use beta. Not confident enough. Get started. Okay, so Apollo Boost. So we need to install these three. Okay. So I'm installing these three libraries that Apollo tells me to install. Now I go into my file and they're telling me to create a client. So I create a client. They all use import, but in all of my projects I'm using require, so it's not a big deal. Const Apollo client equals require. It's more or less the same thing. And then I create a new Apollo client where it's just /GraphQL is the destination. So did that. That's it. Now we're ready to start fetching data. Okay. So this sends a query by just doing that. So in the previous lesson, we have to write the send GQL function ourselves. Like we have to write this out ourselves. But with Apollo Boost or Apollo Client, you don't have to write that function. They give it to you. So connect your client to React. So we need Apollo provider. So your component needs data. So we need to set it up. Const equal require. Got an equal here. So Apollo provider is a component. And this component you need to put around your entire app. So here's my main. I'm going to return Apollo provider. So Apollo provider we need GraphQL to provide data to an entire app. That's why you need to put an Apollo provider component around your entire app like this. So now all of our app has Apollo provider. Now with Apollo provider, we can start requesting data. And to do that, we use useQuery from React hooks. So useQuery. Okay. So now we're going to delete all of this and replace it with useQuery. And let's look at the example on how they did that. So we have our GraphQL here, and then we just write useQuery like this. So let's try this out. Okay, we're sending data. Let's see if this makes sense. use query, but instead of exchange rates, we are doing const user info equals GQL. I'm tagging the string of GQL, but it's not defined, so I need to import it from Apollo Boost. So const Apollo client.gql. Okay, let's just do strings. It's a lot easier. Okay. So user info, let's make this a variable. Okay, so I'm gonna use query and send user info. So you see how this is so many lines of code? And then with Apollo query, it's just one line. You just call use query. So all of this I can delete if this works. So let's console.log data. And let's see if use query gives us the right data. So if I refresh, get an error. Apollo client is not a constructor. Is it because I need to do Apollo client like that? What is going on here? In order to initialize Apollo client, you must specify link blah blah blah. But that's not what they're telling me. Create a client. This is the client that they told me to do. So maybe it's .default. Cannot find client. Okay, maybe I have to use import like what they're saying. This is very strange. Okay, we have trouble with import also. So now we can't use Apollo client. So let's search for Apollo Boost, Apollo client. Let's see if we can figure out what is going on. Maybe we need React Apollo. But we have a React Apollo. And then we can't specify React Apollo client because let's see what the error is. And then we can search for the error. Apollo client is not a constructor. Let's see what the internet says. Alright, this person has the same problem as me. That's great. Okay. So I need to deconstruct it like that. For people who like me using Note Require and just want to get it working. Wow. This person It seems like creating a client is very complicated. Let's do it this way. Why do they make it so complicated? So client, you need an HTTP link. So what is create HTTP link? That's undefined. And create HTTP link comes from this. So we need these two extra libraries. That's annoying. Okay, so now we have create HTTP link. This is good. New in-memory cache. Okay. So the other way is to add these two extra libraries. Let's see if that works even. So yarn add, which are the two libraries? Apollo link HTTP and Apollo cache in memory. So someone said did not submit number 6. Oh, that's right. I did not submit number 6. Thanks for catching that. I'm going to submit number 6 now. I'll submit number 6 and number 7 together. Because I'm on a different branch now, I'm on P7, so P6 is still going to be good. Thanks for catching that. Because right now I have a lot of file changes. So I'm going to get Apollo working first, and then I'll resubmit. Apollo client is not a constructor, same error. So we need to deconstruct it. Could not find client in the context. Wrap the root component in Apollo provider. We did have an Apollo provider here, so it's strange that they would complain about that. This is the main app. And it's complaining where? Main cannot find client in the context. So what is this client then? So I'm going to console.log client. Client is here. Unreachable code after return. Maybe I am returning early. So I'm going to look at, oh, here's return. Oh, I need to be returning Apollo provider. So okay. So previously I wasn't returning anything, now I am. There's a lot of typos and it still doesn't work. Still cannot find client in the context. Okay, this is strange. I think I might need to add the Apollo provider in the app. Like over here, where it says Pokemon enrollment. So let's add it here. Okay, and then if I do it there, I need to define Apollo provider. So I have a guess. The reason why it's throwing an error is because you cannot use useQuery and then have the Apollo provider. You need to be a children of Apollo provider in order to use useQuery here. So that's my theory. I think it's right, but let's make sure by testing it. Okay. So now check it out. I move all the Apollo provider code into the main app code. It's not a very GraphQL. I need to use GraphQL tag to convert it into a document. So I need this. So with Apollo client, the hard part about using it is that it's really hard to set up. So hopefully us setting it up would help give you an overview of what we do to solve all these setup issues. So if you need to set it up for your project, you'll have an easier time. Loading. Okay. So if you see here, the data has lessons and users. It has all the information, and I printed it out. So now the beauty here is that we don't have to use any of these anymore, right? So I have user and lessons. So now what I can do is if we are loading, then page is loading. Right, and then so by Pokemon.name is like data.user.name. I think. Yeah, data.user.name exist. So if data exists and data.user exist and data.user.name exist, then it becomes that. So this would be data.user.name, data.user.image, data.user.lessons, like that. And then this would be data.lessons. Cool. Okay. So all of this code gets deleted, and then all of these Pokemon we don't need anymore. So we just need loading. So we don't need to set our own state, and we don't need to set our own lesson state. So this is gone. So now our main component is a lot simpler if we use Apollo client. Hopefully it took us a long time to get here, but now we can start deleting a lot of code because Apollo client helps us do a lot of these. So let's refresh the page. Hopefully everything still works. Loading. Yeah, everything just loaded. It's good. So this is React Hook ESM. We don't really need to worry about these Apollo. These are all warnings. Error that caused by Apollo. I don't know why their library gives you so many errors, but this should be only during development. So we finished using Apollo for this query. Now we move on to the next query. So when you work as a software engineer, you want to write your GraphQL queries like this, and you want to put these GraphQL queries in a new file. You don't want to put them all in the same file. It's messy. So let's create a new file called Pokemon Queries. Const queries equals an object, module.exports equal queries. And then what we want for queries is this user info object. We don't want it to be in this file to make it clean. Queries.userinfo equals all that. GQL needs to be included. And then const user info okay. So usually at work, I organize all of my libraries at the top and all of my own files at the bottom over here. So now we have a bunch of files, and each file is organized to what it does. So see how simple our main component is now? That's that. And then now we have two mutations over here that we need to take care of. We need to refactor the mutations. 3 mutations. So let's do that. But before we do that, the search page. So we need the Kanban board again. So to do refactor search page to use queries from client. This is one thing we have to do. Refactor enrollment page to use mutations from Apollo client. So I'm going to do this first, and then I do that, and then we're done. So here's my search page. I have this get Pokemon with a variable. So, and then I also have a debound search for the name. And I have a login Pokemon. Okay, that's quite a few queries to do here. Let's start with one of them, which is get Pokemon. So let's look at, we don't need this anymore. Don't need this anymore. Don't need this anymore. Don't need this anymore. So here's how to use it. The tricky part about queries is that if you look at the enrollment page, this is easy because it loads the data right away when the page loads. Right? When the page loads, it loads the data. But what makes the search page difficult is that on click, you want to send the request. So this request is sent only when you click. So that's not as obvious. And then here is, we need to debounce it also. So we need to figure out how to do that. So let's see how we could do that. Fetching data, queries, executing a query. executing queries manually. This is the part we want. So to do that, we need to do use lazy query from Apollo hooks. So instead of use query, it's use lazy query. Okay. So when we do use lazy query, we want to send this request. So let's do queries dot get Pokemon. So we need to move this into here. Let's do that. And string needs to be a variable. So how do we pass it in? Let's see what they suggest. So we need variables. Okay, so in GraphQL you can do a variable send cerny.com/GraphQL. Okay, for get Pokemon, if you want to get information about Pikachu, you can do it like that, and you get the Pokemon name is Pikachu. If you don't know what the variable is going to be, you can name your query get Pokemon get Pokemon. We take in a string. Okay, this is wrong, so don't know what to type here. Let's see how it works. Expected $, so name is a type string, and then string we're gonna pass in name. Nice, we figured it out. And then in the variables we do name is Pokemon. Pikachu. Oh no, there's an error here. What is the error? String. Okay. So you can send this using variables, and here is the actual query that we want to use in our GraphQL. Cool. So we need to pass in a variable called name. And then when we send the lazy query, it would be get Pokemon. I want to send the lazy query. So let's see how to send the lazy query. Like that. So the variable is called get Pokemon. Const get Pokemon. So now I'm going to replace all this with lazy query. Or maybe this is on click, we call on select. So maybe search result, whoever calls search result, this guy sets the selected Pokemon. So this should use the lazy query for get Pokemon. So loading data, get Pokemon. So console.log data for get Pokemon is data. So use lazy query is almost very similar to use state. It gives you a function and data, and this data, think of it as state. So it's almost use state in reverse. Use state gives you the state, which is the value, and then a function. So every time you call the function, this value changes. But use lazy query is the opposite. The first argument is actually a function, and then the second argument is an object with the data. So when you call this function, the data changes. So on change, on select, we want to call set selected Pokemon, but instead of set selected Pokemon, we want to call get Pokemon. Cool. And get selected Pokemon, we need to take in the Pokemon's name. So how do we get the Pokemon's name? The Pokemon's name is result.name. So we need to call a function. Const get selected Pokemon is a function that executes the get Pokemon query. And get Pokemon, you need to pass in variables. And the object name is result.name. Okay, so we need to pass in this get selected Pokemon function. Cool. So let's see if we click on the selected Pokemon, whether we get the selected Pokemon information when we load the page. But first we need to clear our cookie. So get data for Pokemon is, so now there's an object with get Pokemon and its name is Metapod. So we have the information here. But then the data we want needs to be, we want the image as well. So name, comma, image. So when we have the selected Pokemon, then what we want to do is set the selected Pokemon to, so if our data exists, okay, we don't need this anymore. And now we don't need this anymore. Okay. Let me look at data. There's an error because we don't have this search page component. So let's see. So we don't need the selected Pokemon anymore. but we actually kind of do. So I think I'm a little stuck. So on click, we don't need any of this anymore. We just called unselect the Pokemon. So on click, we just called the unselect button. And we don't need to pass in anything. Okay. So this makes this function a lot easier to handle. And let's see if this works. Data for selected Pokemon exist here. So now we need to set the get Pokemon is here. Okay. So the problem is when we get the Pokemon, we have the data here and we need to display the selected Pokemon. And how do we know if the selected Pokemon exists? We don't want to display the selected result. And the selected Pokemon.name exists, we show. So it's not the selected Pokemon.name, it's actually the data.getPokemon. So if data.exist and data.getPokemon, and data.getPokemon.name exist, then const name image is going to be data.getPokemon, and here's name, here's image, and this should work with the search now. And if I click on it, it should show the Pokemon. So now if I clear it and there's a change, we need to make the change over here. So it's not affected. And to do that, what we need to do is we need to set the selected Pokemon if it exists. So when I click, I need to call set selected Pokemon with an object with the name as result.name. And then this would be and selected Pokemon.name. Okay, so this should make the search pretty straightforward now. Poliwag, I click, and as I type Charmander, new thing should show up. But now every time I type, a lot of requests shows up. Oh, it only sends one request, so that's okay. Okay, so we did the selected Pokemon to get the query, and now we need to search for the Pokemon over here. And set lazy query for search. This would be search Pokemon, and this would be search. Pokemon over here. Let's create a new query called search Pokemon. Search Pokemon takes in a value, and then search for string, which is the name. And that looks like a great search Pokemon query. Okay, so search Pokemon, and then here's the search Pokemon result. We cannot destructure it because if we destructure it like this, then loading is going to be defined twice, but we can't have loading be defined twice, so search Pokemon result. And then the debounce search, we need to do const debounce search equals can do that later, I guess. So instead of debounce search, we're going to call search Pokemon function and pass in the variables. The name is going to be search string. Okay. And then what is the set search? We don't need the set search results. So now the results is going to be search Pokemon result dot data. Let's see. So every time I type, there's an object.search over here. So Pokemon result.data.search. So results is going to be const results equals let results equals. And then if search Pokemon result and search Pokemon result.data and search Pokemon result.data.search, then results equals that. So now we don't need to use the search anymore. Let's see. Well, actually, we still need the search query to figure out what the user is typing, so we need that. Okay, so let's see if this works. So this one works. I actually like the previous implementation because of the debounce. If we do it this way with the lazy query, we can't really debounce it. There's no easy way to debounce this search. So maybe we can still try. Yeah, there's no easy way to debounce this search. Let's try to see if maybe we can do a debounce search like this. So we actually don't need this anymore. Right, so we just run the search Pokemon function and then we're good to go. Let's debounce this search Pokemon function and then we run the debounce search and see if this works out. Okay, so if I type really fast, POK, only one should get sent out, but 3 of them got sent out. So and the reason is because every time there's an unchange event, we're setting the Pokemon to a new object. And so because we're doing that, it re-triggers the page to render, and then it calls debound search, so then 3 of this request gets sent. So it's pretty much useless. So I'm going to keep the original implementation for the search results. This search result doesn't make sense. But getting Pokemon makes sense, so I think we are good to go for this page. Let's see if we have any other ones. So now we have a login request. And this login request is calling a window.reload, so we don't really need to optimize anything here. So search Pokemon is no longer needed. That's good. Let's make sure everything works before we move on to mutations. Okay. So this took a long time, but this is done. What we learned here is that sometimes it's not good to always use Apollo client. There are some things where we can't use it, where it's not good to use. So now we're going to use mutations. So mutations is going to be for, let's see, we have set star, enroll, and yeah, we just have 3 mutations here. But these mutations are not dependent on the response, so I don't think it wouldn't help to run mutations here either. We're just sending a GraphQL request. So we don't actually need to do anything here. So I guess we're just done. Okay. So git add source app.js, git add source, and we need to add package.json. Solves problem 7 of JS6. Okay. Now my yarn lock changed, so I'm gonna go into master and then git add yarn commit saves yarn lock changes. And then now I'm going to go back to P6 because I haven't submitted the challenge yet. Merge master to be in sync with master. Submit JS6 problem 6. Okay. Let's make sure JS6 problem 6 is submitted. There's a few changes here. And now we can submit JS7. and then code git merge master, code submit, JS6 7. Here's the user info and get Pokemon Apollo query, and then we're good to go. Okay, so we're at the last lesson and then we are done. This one is to create a real-time chat room for the Pokemon chat. So for that we go to P8 and then git merge P7. Okay. So now is a good stopping point. We've finished this one also. We've finished 3 challenges today. I think the last one is going to be adding Socket.io to have real-time chat. So we did a chat room last time and in JS5, and that chat room it's not as fast. With Socket.io you can make a chat room really fast. So we'll do that tomorrow. And yeah, thanks for watching. See you guys tomorrow.